Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. It's a pleasure to be with you again. It's November 11th, Veterans Day, uh, 2023, and we're looking to avoid another war, uh, so we don't have to send people over or send resources over to something which really is not a whole heck of our business. But that's my opinion. I'm not trying to force that on you. Okay. But we do have, so allow me to introduce myself. I'm a Vedic astrologer of 30 years, 30 plus years practice, and also a part-time musician, music critic, and just general know-it-all. So I'd like to talk to you this week about what Vedic astrology um, means for you this week, and also what it means for the rest of the world, what the planetary configurations indicate for the following week. And I do this every week. I do readings for people as well. I suggest remedial measures, things which will make your chart not quite so difficult to live with. And uh, do, I also teach Vedic or Indian astrology online, and I can be contacted at the following phone number: 508 525 0001. Again, that's 508 525 0001. So if you do want to contact me, you can text me at that number or you can call me. My email address is Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. Again, that's GaryGomes at gmail.com. And I hope the connection stays in place because I am getting some rather staticky background. I was hoping to have set up my new computer by this time, but um, I can't seem to get certain software to work on it just yet. And I need the software in order to do this particular presentation for you. The visual quality will probably be much better than this, uh, and so will the audio, I hope. So, again, just be a little bit more patient, and we'll be able to do an upgrade very soon. So, again, 508 525 0001 is the best way to contact me, text or phone. Let's see now. So, let's talk about the week or where the planets are right now. And I'll try to make this as entertaining as possible. All right. So I'm going to stop the share because it doesn't look like the screen is coming on. Let's do this again. It looks like it's on now. So I'm going to do it one more time for Jupiter 3 times. Here's the charm. Right. So it looks like it took that time. And so we'll look at the planets. Now, the planets are more than a little bit uh, difficult this week. And we have kind of an interesting configuration. We have um, a Moon Mars conjunction today, along with K2 and Sun So K2, this is interesting because I just found out I lost something. And K2, along with the moon and Mars and sun, will produce that kind of an effect. Uh, I found out I lost it before uh, it could turn it into a problem for me. But I think one of the things I would double check is I would recommend everybody double check their financial resources, credit cards, things like that, and also double check their vehicles over the next week, just mainly because of this Mars K2 conjunction and also K2 influencing the sun. Okay. So this is essentially K2 is responsible for solar eclipses. We're not due for another solar eclipse for another few months, but another 4 months or so. I'm sorry, 5 months or so. And I think one of the things so that K2 does do is make us a little bit absent-minded or a little bit spacey, and that can help us to lose things. Also, Jupiter is retrograde. That can also make us a little bit um, hyper optimistic. So these are things to wash out just in general. Saturn is aspecting Jupiter, so it's making us, it's sort of like pulling us back and making us speculate and saying, well, can I do this or can I not do this? Also, Saturn aspecting Mercury can make us a little bit careless with money or maybe even a little bit slow in communications. So just be aware of that over the next, uh, I would say, 3 weeks or so. This Saturn aspecting Mercury will probably haunt us into December because Mercury will go retrograde after mid-December. There's a very strong possibility around December 10th, I believe it is. And around that time, it'll be very easy to get garbled communications. You can get good deals on things. That's one advantage for Christmas shoppers. Um, um, Retrograde Mercury often gives good breaks, especially on old things. But it's also a time in which we can enter into contracts which would not be wise. So let's say you're buying something and it's a newer item, you should be very, very careful, especially if it's anything connected with communications or let's say a telephone or something like that. However, you can get fantastic deals, but you may have to go back and get revisions on them. Things like clothes, it doesn't affect too much. And so, but again, there will be little flaws in transactions or mistakes made. And so just be a little bit aware of that. What it does, and we have Venus debilitated right now, so it's making us very critical about music, art, um, even justice systems. So I'm seeing a lot going on in terms of the justice system right now, which is either hasty or ill-advised or just um, wrong. People aren't being really careful uh, to uh, when they're going into litigation. They're not being really thoughtful when they're investigating. They're not being very honest when they're investigating. So this is going to be the pattern you'll see over the next month or so, and it'll finally break around 22 days from now. Venus will be in the same sign um, with well, actually, it'll be by itself in about a month or sign or so. So for people who are Libras or Aries, it'll be a relatively good time for them. And I think also a lot of people who are prone towards attachment to material things will reconsider some of their thoughts and look for optimal ways to fulfill their desires. But I think this is also a time when people are very critical of lovers. They can be a little bit greedy. Um, these are all indicative of a debilitated Venus. A strong Venus is actually a nice placement because it actually produces people who are very generous, very giving. A weak Venus is a little bit selfish or judgmental or even jealous. So these are the things to watch out for in your behavior over the next couple of weeks. If we go to the Navamsha chart, if you look over here, this chart right down here, Venus is exalted in the Navamsha chart. So at least for a few days, everybody's going to be more nice than normal. Um, I found it fascinating. I was watching uh, the debate coverage, the Republican debate coverage the other night, and I saw a lot of what I would call war posturing. And that to me um, indicates more than anything else that Mars and K2 are still together. So the K2 really hasn't fully gone over into the sign Virgo. I think when you see combinations like this, there's a certain rashness or a certain eagerness to fight. Consequences be damned. And that's, and the retrograde Jupiter, again, is more posturing, is more, I'm just trying to think. I'm not saying the people who were saying it didn't mean it. I think they absolutely did. But there's this feeling that we can't be beat if you have a Jupiter Rahu conjunction, which, again, is what I would call a hubris combination, just excessive pride combination. So again, this, so I don't think Rahu's quite gone into Pisces yet, but it's on the borderline. So you see it's really, really close. So that sort of supports my argument for the true node. Um, these are different ways of measuring the eclipse points. They're kind of inconsequential to the casual viewer who likes to tune in and get an idea of what's happening in the world. And just double checking something. Okay, so we're still recording. So that Mars Moon Sun combination, so governments are kind of aggressive. They're kind of ready to fight. Let's put it that way. So that basically means everybody's ready to fight. If we can make it through the next 4 to 5 months without a major event, a major military event, or a major escalation, I'll be grateful but surprised. However, Venus entering Libra within about 3 weeks should offset that tendency. It'll also offset the tendency towards economic inflation. Venus is in Libra, but it'll also put like a large dose of reality on the table. When Venus enters Scorpio in about 2 months, I'm expecting to see some indications of recession, maybe even this month. But Saturn's not involved in Venus. So Saturn is involved in Jupiter, which is again still generating some inflationary pressure. And again, like I said, I would say an absence or a denial of reality. One of the things I found fascinating is I saw don't underestimate the ability of the media to twist the truth. And this is all media. This is not just network news um, or um, or the major networks or cable news. Um, I think one of the things I see is that, especially during the United States, is in a Rahu Mahadasha that tends to give a this battle between the powers that be and rebels. So the last time we had a Rahu Mahadasha and a and Rahu starting the Mahadasha in the sign that it did was in the Revolutionary War, in the buildup to the Revolutionary War. So I think one of the things, so I'm not necessarily predicting that the United States will engage in another revolution, but seeing that turn off that opposition, turn off anytime soon, whether it be from the left or the right, is, I think, wishful thinking. I don't think it's going to happen. We're in a reformation stage in the United States and actually pretty much around the world. And a lot of that happens every 30 years when we have Saturn cycles uh, going where they are. Right now, Saturn's really strong in its sign. And the last time we had it was in the 1990s. And you had several wars break out in the 1990s. Bosnia, um, is Somalia, uh, the, even Afghanistan was in the 1990s, and even the dissolution of what was formerly the Soviet Union, and the change in government in China happened pretty much shortly before the Saturn transit occurred. And I think, so basically you have roughly about a 10-year period um, in the 1960s, early 1970s, where you saw similar changes. Uh, that one actually resulted in what I would call a rise of repressive governments after a big liberalization period in Western Europe or in Eastern Europe, excuse me. And you also had the Vietnam War and a variety of military dictatorships in rapid succession in South America. In the 1990s, it was a little bit more. So again, these things happen all the time, but there were a cluster of activities that happened in the 1960s. And you also had in the 1930s, that was a Saturn transit, and also in the 1900s. So these things do tend to be heavily reliant on Saturn cycles. Um, I don't think it's anything we should be terrified of. Change is inevitable, and but I do think again, I've been seeing some key politicians in the United States and around the world announce their resignations, and I think that's going to continue. And the other thing is, I'm also seeing people declaring victory or declaring uh, embarrassment far too easily. Um, so um, the elections just occurred in the United States uh, about last week, and I'm trying to see how the current, how the Republicans suffered a major setback when all that happened was basically uh, they lost the governorship and the person was an incumbent. The person who won was an incumbent. They lost a bill on abortion and marijuana, which is a single issue. And I'm trying to think. Oh, and they lost a legislature by basically 4 votes in either direction. Um, these aren't earth-shattering changes to me. Also, if we go to the Democrat side of things, the impeachment inquiry moving forward is a setback, but so far there hasn't been a lot of really concrete evidence provided in the impeachment inquiry. Maybe that'll change over the next few weeks. What has come out, interestingly enough, though, is a lot of information about monitoring of um, people over the past uh, 20 years or so. And this includes um, criticisms on the Democratic side about the DNC being rigged, criticisms of the FBI, criticisms of a variety of leaders uh, and their affiliations. So this is something which, and again, we're a year away from elections. It's far too early to count anybody out of competition. So I think one of the things that we should all learn is not to be so rapid to, number one, count people out, and number two, uh, to predict world outcomes a year in advance. That's so we're only looking at probabilities. A lot of streams could change. I think one of the more interesting things that's going on is there's a lot of static going on, what I call static, and that is there are a lot of small news stories which really don't um, illuminate what's going on. They're more uh, so and so got upset about this. Hello, hello. I'm gonna pause this for a second.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, Rhonda. How you doing?
Good. Are you a house?
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is astrologers should be cautious about making long-term predictions right now, especially given the condition of the planets and also the condition of um, the media, which is intended to really sell things, not inform us. So again, like I said, this is kind of a repeating theme with me. I don't mean to be negative about the media. I actually uh, had wanted to be a reporter when I was younger, uh, but I I kind of saw the direction I was heading in at a very early age, and I pulled myself out of it. So again, like I said, you can trust whomever you want to trust. Um, I would really try not to let myself get worked up and get antagonized by media because, or get upset about media because it's essentially just kind of wasting your time right now. All right, so let's get on to the astrological signs for the week. All right, so Aries, let's start with Aries. Aries is up here. This is May, April 15th to May 15th. And this sign has Rahu and Jupiter in the first house, Rahu trending towards the 12th house. Venus is in the sixth house. So again, as last week, relationship partners and even children will seem to be difficult or tough to get along with. Mercury's in the eighth house. It is good for research. This is a good combination for research. Um, there's sort of a combination over here between the sixth house lord, the eighth house lord, and the seventh house lord. So this can produce misunderstandings or, at the very least, miscommunications between relationship partners and business partners. So again, be careful about people over promising you things. But basically, luck is good for this sign. Gains are slow, but eventful. And I think you'll see with Saturn aspecting Jupiter, a lot of slow, deliberate consideration for the sign. Um, Taurus, that's May 15th to June 15th, has Jupiter in the 12th house. With Jupiter in the 12th, it does tend to encourage spending. The 11th house lord is in the 12th house, so we'll be spending because of friends or trying to impress friends. And Venus is in the fifth. That's actually not a bad placement for this sign. It actually increases its financial growth and financial opportunities. And Mars, Ketu, Moon, and Sun are in the sixth. Be careful about jealous employees or friends. Mercury's in the seventh house. It'll give a lot of contact with smart people, relationship wise. Saturn's in the 10th, a lot of hard work and a lot of business related expenses. For a Gemini, June 15th through July 15th. Gemini, Gemini's ruler is Mercury. Mercury is in the sixth house, is the lord of the fourth, and the fourth lord and the fifth lord is in the fourth. So there's a lot of attention to kids, some arguments with kids, some problems, and some feeling of being in an adversarial state with everybody right now. Not a lot of support. Saturn is also aspecting Mercury in this sign, and I think whenever you see that kind of a combination, it feels like you're swimming through sludge to get communications done. The Saturn aspect on Jupiter is actually benevolent, but it does slow down economic gains and financial success. For Cancer, this is July 15th through August 15th. Cancer has Jupiter and Rahu in the 10th house. That's very good for career growth. Saturn does aspect it though, so that's a little bit difficult for the sign. The moon is in the 4th house in Libra. So this indicates additional fights or arguments with relationship partners. Venus is in the 3rd house, so there's a hesitancy to be confrontational in relationships. And Mercury's in the 5th house, so this gives good communication skills, although a tendency to overexpend on children and on hobbies. Saturn in the 8th, a lot of research, but a lot of heavy research. You won't find facts easily. And Jupiter in the 10th, again, good for career. For Leo, this is August 15th through September 15th. Leo has Venus in the 2nd house, so that's good for financial gains, but it'll be a little bit weak-willed or a little bit aggressive in pursuing its goals. So the will be weak, but it'll be overly aggressive or overly assertive. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but you'll see it flipping back and forth between those states. Mercury's in the 4th house. This does give increased attention to home renovations. Saturn's in the 7th house. This gives stability to long-term relationships, although they may seem kind of boring or dull. Jupiter's in the 9th house, which can give increased career success and increased knowledge. But the Lord of the 10th, Venus, is in the 2nd house, so that increases the sign's tendency towards greed, unfortunately. For Virgo, Virgo has Venus in the 1st house. Now, this is a funny combination, an unusual combination, because this is a wealth-producing planet for Virgo rising. It's a luck-producing planet for Virgo rising. It is debilitated, but it will bring money to the sign. So this is actually kind of interesting. And this sign will be a little bit hesitant about seeking out wealth, but the Mars, Moon, Sun, K2 conjunction, it'll be a little bit careless in its expenditure pattern because the 12th Lord is debilitated. Saturn's in the 6th. So I think one of the things that we're looking at is Saturn's in the 6th is a good ability to overcome enemies, a good ability to discipline oneself. Jupiter's in the 8th. Again, a lot of research into occult or metaphysical systems, and overall good career growth for this sign. For Libra, Libra has kind of a Raj Yoga, or what's called a Dana Yoga, occurring in the 1st house. This is actually interesting because none of these planets are really friendly to Libra, but they do create an opportunity for wealth. Especially Mars, Moon, and Sun. There's a focus on career, a focus on gains. Mars is Lord of the 2nd house. Sun's the Lord of the 11th house. That's good for gains, but there'll be some blocks or maybe even escaped opportunities with K2 in the 1st. With Saturn in the 5th house, that's actually good for the sign. It makes it very slow, deliberative, calculating, and ultimately gives it good luck. With Jupiter in the 7th, again, a little bit too much over-optimism. Maybe you'll be considering entering into partnerships with people who may not have your best interests at heart. And finally, Venus is in the 12th house, so again, a heavy expenditure pattern to see. Although Venus in the 12th is actually good for saving money. So this is actually a little bit contradictory, but I think you'll see the sign being very conscious of not trying to spend too much over the next few weeks. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Mercury in the first house. This is a wealth-producing combination for the sign. The 11th Lord is in the first house, but confidence will be affected, and especially there'll be a lot of responsibilities at home over the next few weeks. Even maybe even some minor health issues because of Jupiter in the sixth house. And I think overall, and Venus is in the 11th house, so this should give good financial gains for this sign. But with the Lord of the First in the 12th, and with Sun, Moon, and K2 in the 12th, again, just a heavy expenditure pattern. A lot of people, I think, right now are spending beyond their means. That's just the impression I'm getting from the way the planets are lined up. So we're keeping buying because we have credit cards we can use. But I don't know whether or not that's going to continue over the next couple of months. I tend to doubt it, especially after Christmas. I think you're going to see a slowdown, but we'll see what happens actually. Um, and let's see now. So Scorpio looks like it in terms of relationships. Try to stay out of relationships, Scorpio. It's just really not a good time for you. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has the Lord of the First in the fifth house, which gives it overall luck. There'll be a lot of recognition for past efforts the sign has put forth. Saturn is in the third house, aspecting um, the Saturn's in the is in the third house, aspecting the ninth house, which can give it some problems in terms of luck, but it'll give it a lot of courage. The Lord of the second is in the third, strong desire for wealth or material gain. And Venus is in the 10th, so some unhappiness with career. Um, we have a cluster of planets all lined up between the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th houses, which indicates careers can be in jeopardy for the sign. Too much focus on friendships and probably too much spending. Again, it shows up for Sagittarius. For Capricorn, this is December 15th. I'm sorry, this is January 15th through February 15th. Stop the thing. Yep, December 15th, January 15th through February 15th. Sagittarius is December 15th through January 15th, and Scorpio is November 15th through December 15th. So I forgot to give you those signs. And I think I left out Virgo and Libra, but I think it can fill in the gaps. For this particular sign, for Capricorn, a lot of focus on money and security, a lot of dissatisfaction with home life and status, a lot of career focus, but some problems gaining recognition or status or financial improvement with Mercury in the 11th house. So be a little bit careful about friends. I told you this for a long time with Sagittarius. That's still true with Sagittarius. But it's on its way out. It's diminishing. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Saturn in the first house, and Saturn is in a Raj Yoga placement, or it's in its own sign in the first house, aspecting Jupiter, which is in the third house. So this will give a lot of focus on trying new things, experimenting. The sun is in the seventh house, so there'll be a lot of deferential treatment to our spouse. and also some concern about spouse's health. That also shows up with Venus in the eighth, debilitated. So there'll be a lot of research and maybe wishful thinking in metaphysical matters, so, like wish fulfillment, trying to get some things you want. Mercury's in Scorpio in the 10th house, so that should give some good career growth to this sign and good financial gains. Finally, for Pisces, Pisces has Venus and Virgo in the 7th house, so relationships will seem difficult or a little bit challenging. Although if we go to the Navamsha chart, Venus is in its own sign and Mercury's in its own sign, so actually probably not a bad time for you to consider a relationship, Pisces. Jupiter's in the 2nd house, but it's there with Rahu, so again, there is a tendency to say things you'll regret or have to take back later on. You have a cluster of planets in the 8th house. This will make this sign very attractive to people. It's not necessarily a bad placement. And Mercury's in the 9th house, which is good for both status and relationship life. So again, not bad for relationships for Pisces, but this is really the only sign I can see this happening for. It's possible Virgo might have good relationship luck too, just because of the Navamsha chart. But a lot of the other signs don't benefit from that Navamsha. All right, so that's it for week by week, sign by sign. Let's go over to the chart for the world. I would also encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this chart to friends or people you think may be interested in it. I am slowly starting to build a subscriber base, and hopefully we'll break. So this is a slow build. It's a very slow build, and I will be posting some more videos with interviews on them, which will appeal more to a general astrological audience. But so far, I've been a little bit negligent in that matter because I've had other obligations come up. So let's see where the planetary lines are. Some potential for misleading news out of Hawaii. Okay, we have Mars and Mercury lines conjoining there. Also, Moon and Rahu indicate some scandals in California. I know there's some recent controversy about the Senate race in California that came up about who should be running, and that may be an issue. Also in Nevada and Oregon. So I think Oregon and Washington State and even Western Canada. So all these things tend to make this part of the United States big in the news. Maybe Governor Newsom will be called out again by one of his colleagues for running a secret campaign. I don't know. We'll see. Jupiter sits over New Mexico up through Nevada and just a little bit into Wyoming, I think, and into Montana. And essentially, this Jupiter line will tend to give a lot of attention to legal matters in this part of the country. There's a Sun-Mars line right over the central part of the country, North Dakota, South Dakota, all the way down through central Texas, or east central Texas, excuse me, and down through Mexico City. So I think you'll see some political upheaval in that part of the world. Um, there's a Mercury line running through Michigan, Kentucky, uh, down into Mississippi, and down into Central America, Nicaragua, and a Saturn line uh, cutting up through Cuba and surrounding the east coast of the United States and down into Panama and brushing up against Ecuador and Peru. Now, what this tends to mean is some economic difficulty, usually for these parts of the world. Um, I think one of the things that you have to keep in mind is this can indicate a slowing down, not necessarily a recession, and is passing right through my hometown, actually, right here. So this will be interesting, and it's passing close to Boston and Maine. So it'll be interesting to see what effect it has here. But this does indicate a kind of a slowing of the economy. Venus is passing through what? Okay, be right out. Yeah, I'll be right out. All right. So we were over into, um, as I recall, Brazil, and there is some indication of some potential government scandal coming into Brazil again. Um, but the Rahu line is far enough away from the coast so that may not be an issue. Excuse me. It does look like there will be some uh, attempted um, governmental overthrows or even violence around Mali and Algeria and Niger or Niger. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. There's a Saturn line running uh, right through Algeria, next to Morocco, right into uh, gosh, right through tiny Gabon, um, and starting up in Sweden. So I think Europe's going to have a tough month of it. I think there are already signs of an economic slowdown in Europe and especially in Great Britain or in the UK. Excuse me. Um, and I think you'll see further signs of that over the next couple of weeks. Um, this is something I really don't want to see happen, but I think we will see it. There's a Venus line running right over Ukraine, Turkey, far eastern Turkey. Um, there was an earthquake in Turkey last week. It was a small one, um, and also next to Syria. So this part of the world, especially over here, this large area all the way through to Iran and Saudi Arabia, it looks like it's sort of in a pressure cooker between this Saturn line, this Venus line, and this Rahu line. So it's quite possible the Iran, and this moon line over here in Iran isn't good either because, and near Iraq isn't good because it does indicate um, maybe some plotting or some uh, attempts at uh, military action. or subterfuge. Um, Now, again, keep in mind, this is just based upon planetary assignments. I haven't analyzed these countries' charts, but this may actually lead to some rebellion within these countries. Um, Also, there's a Jupiter line passing close to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. So, quite possible for um, some sort of a religious crusade or uh, between these countries, especially in these regions, and a lot of tension in these regions. And finally, as we get over to Saturn, this Saturn line runs through China and all the way into a Mercury line, which cuts over Korea. So that does indicate to me economic slowdown in this part of the world as well. Some panic in Australia, some scandal in Australia spreading out to New Zealand. So that's it for this week. I hope I haven't overstayed my welcome. Thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate you so much. And I love you all. And thank you very, very much for putting up with the interruptions today. Bye bye. See you next week.